Well, welcome to week 3, video 1 for PSC 355. And in this video, we're going to be discussing dependency theory. The central question in this video that we're going to answer is, why did many developing countries close off their economies to trade in the post-World War II era? In your text, you'll recall that Oatley uses this framework of interests in institutions to explain policy choices. And he explains that policy interests are the product of two different mechanisms. The first are material interests derived from an actor's position in the economy. When we looked at trade preferences, we discussed, right, are you a worker, a laborer, or a capitalist? That explains your preference or your policy interests over trade policy. That's a use of material interest to explain policy interests. But Oatley also talks about the role of ideas and how ideas can influence policy interests. Here, ideas are mental models that provide a coherent set of beliefs about cause and effect relationships. And in this video, we're going to look at how new ideas about the global economy, how those ideas influenced the trade policy choices and industrial policy choices of developing countries in the first decades following the Second World War. Dependency theory emerges in the 1950s in post-war Latin America. Economists like Raul Prebisch make the case for economic closure. This is very different from this neoclassical economic argument for why free trade is good. Dependency theory made the argument that traditional economic liberalism, openness, is wrong, and many Latin American governments embraced these ideas and implemented closed trade policies. They closed their economies off to world trade. It wasn't just in Latin America, this is where it dominated and where the ideas originated from, but also places like India and many African countries use these ideas as well. So let's unpack dependency theory. Why did Raul Prebisch and others make this argument that closure was actually better? Dependency theory broke the world up into two segments. It viewed the world as one global economy that had core economies. The core or rich states specialized in the production of advanced goods and manufacturing. They also controlled global finances. The second group included countries that belonged in the periphery. And the periphery were the poorest countries. And in these poor countries, they didn't produce manufactured goods. They didn't produce advanced technological goods. They produced primary products, farming, agriculture, mining, etc. And a particular relationship existed between these two groups, dependency theorists said. The periphery exported goods to the core, resources, food, mining, oil, etc. And the core then used those primary products to produce advanced manufactured goods, which the core would then sell back to the periphery. This is the relationship that dependency theorists like Prebisch argued existed in the global economy. Dependency theory argued that this was harmful in the long run to developing countries because of a concept known as declining terms of trade. The idea here was that the price of primary products, again, agricultural goods and products from mines and oil, etc., that the prices of these products are going to decline relative to capital intensive goods or manufactured goods. Why is that? Well, it was based on this other concept called the income elasticity of demand, the degree to which a change in income alters demand for a particular product. Let's unpack this a little bit more. So, if a particular product exhibits a high income elasticity of demand, dependency theorists said that even with a small increase in income, this would lead to a large increase in demand for that product. Manufactured goods, dependency theorists argued, exhibited this high income elasticity of demand. So let me give you an example here. If your income were to increase, say, by 10% tomorrow, right? You were going to make 10% more money over the next year than you did the previous year. That's a small increase in your income. But what that would do is lead to a large increase in demand for, say, a new television or a new smartphone or a new stereo for your house, right? The idea here is that even a little bit an increase in your income is going to increase the demand for these manufactured goods produced in the core. On the other hand, goods that exhibit a low income elasticity of demand, even when there's a large increase in income, you're not going to see much of an increase in demand for those goods. Primary products fall into this category. So an example I like to use is if you were to double your income tomorrow, let's say next year you're going to make twice the money you made the year before. How many more bananas are you going to buy? Right? Dependency theorists would say you're probably not going to buy many more bananas. You're going to be content with the same amount of bananas you had before. So you're actually going to see, even as incomes grow, you're not going to see much increase in demand for primary products. So, dependency theory said that, hey, as incomes rise in the core countries, a smaller percentage of that income is going to be spent on imports from the periphery, and demand is going to stagnate for primary products. On the other hand, as incomes in the periphery rise, a larger percentage of those incomes will be spent on imports from the core, those manufactured goods. Demand is going to rise for goods produced in the core. So, the consequence of this is this declining terms of trade. Over time, the prices of goods produced in the core will increase relative to the prices of goods produced in the periphery. Dependency theory said that the structure of the global capitalist economy was biased against developing countries. Trade, dependency theorist argues, does not benefit developing countries, it impoverishes them. The periphery, dependency theorists argued, wasn't just undeveloped. It wasn't that it had never had the opportunity to develop its economy. It was underdeveloped. The concept underdevelopment suggested that it was a process of impoverishment, that being part of the global economy actually hurt you even more. It made your economy less wealthy over time. The only way out, dependency theorists argued, was to industrialize. But industrialization could only be achieved by unplugging yourself or closing yourself off from that global economy. We didn't discuss the new material interests in these economies. You can read about this in the Oatley book. That's another important part of the story, a shift in domestic material interests, but also these new ideas, dependency theory, result in the dominance of this new development model across Latin America and even other developing countries in the post-war years. That new model was called import substitution industrialization, and we're going to talk about that in the next video.